I never expected my 28th birthday to change everything. But there I was, scrolling through Facebook when I saw it. My family had thrown a surprise party that night for my sister Haley. The caption stabbed like a knife. "The only one who deserves celebrating." I commented, "Nice cake." My mom replied, "At least someone's worth baking for." I smiled at my screen, a plan already forming. I replied, "Enjoy it, while you can." That same night, I made one transfer, sent 2 emails. 12 days later, my sister screamed when her landlord called and said her rent was canceled, but not in the way anyone expected. Growing up as Phyllis Winters meant living in Haley's shadow. From day one, it seemed my sister could do no wrong, while I could do no right. She was 3 years younger, yet somehow always the center of attention. The pattern was established early. Haley would stumble through a dance recital, and my parents would act like she'd performed on Broadway. I'd bring home straight A's, and they'd barely glance at my report card. "Your sister needs more encouragement," my dad would say, whenever I pointed out the imbalance. "She struggles more than you do." But what they never saw was how I struggled too, just differently. I wasn't naturally gifted like Haley claimed to be. Everything I achieved came from hard work and persistence. I stayed up late studying while Haley charmed her way through school. I saved every dollar from after-school jobs, while Haley spent every cent she received. The worst example was our graduations. When Haley graduated high school, my parents rented a pavilion at Lake Hartford, invited 50 people, and ordered a custom 3-tier cake with her face printed on it. When I graduated college, the first in our family to do so with honors in finance, they took me to Applebee's, just the 4 of us. My dad spent half the dinner taking business calls. "We're just so busy this month," my mother explained. "And you know college graduations aren't as special as they used to be. Everyone goes to college these days." I didn't bother pointing out that neither of them had degrees, or that we'd spent the previous weekend celebrating Haley's promotion at the department store where she worked part-time. Despite it all, I built my life brick by brick. I put myself through college with scholarships and weekend jobs. I secured an entry-level position at Brighton Financial and worked my way up to junior financial analyst within 3 years. I bought a small condo in the same city as my family, partially because property was affordable, and partially because, despite everything, I still hoped for their approval. Every birthday I'd wake up with that childish hope that maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year they'd remember. Maybe this year they'd make me feel special. By evening, I'd inevitably find myself alone, ordering takeout, watching whatever was on Netflix, and telling myself it didn't matter. This year felt different. 2 days before my birthday, I'd received news of a promotion to senior analyst. It came with a substantial raise and validation that my hard work was paying off. For once, I had something tangible to celebrate, something even my parents couldn't dismiss. I'd planned to share the news over birthday dinner, the one I still hoped they'd remember to suggest. I woke up on my birthday to 0 messages. No calls, no texts, not even an automated Facebook notification, since I'd hidden my birthday on my profile years ago after no one acknowledged it. Still, I got dressed with care, wearing my new charcoal pencil skirt and burgundy blouse. Today was my day, whether anyone else recognized it or not. My colleagues at Brighton Financial did remember. When I arrived at my desk, a small chocolate cake with a single candle waited next to a card signed by everyone in the department. "Happy birthday," Phyllis called out Jordan from accounting. "And congrats again on the promotion. Double celebration today, huh?" I smiled, genuinely touched. "Thanks, everyone. This means a lot." "Any big plans tonight?" asked Melissa, my closest work friend. "Family dinner, probably." I lied, the words bitter in my mouth. "Nothing fancy." The day flew by in a flurry of meetings and spreadsheets. I stayed focused on work, pushing aside the silence from my phone. By 5:30, as I packed up my bag, I'd convinced myself that maybe they were planning a surprise. Maybe they'd be waiting at my condo or calling any minute to invite me over. I drove home through light rain, the kind that makes everything look slightly blurred and dreamlike. My condo was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Neat, quiet, empty. I kicked off my heels, changed into yoga pants and a soft t-shirt, and heated up leftover pasta. As I ate alone at my small dining table, I kept checking my phone. Nothing. It was just after 7 when I opened Facebook, a habit more than an intention, and there it was at the top of my feed, a live update from my mother's account. Photos of balloons, streamers, and a large cake. My father grinning broadly, my mother's arm around Haley, whose surprised expression told me she hadn't expected whatever was happening. I squinted at the timestamp. These were being posted right now as I sat alone with my reheated pasta. The caption under the first group of photos read, "Surprise party for our amazing Haley, the only one who deserves celebrating." My stomach clenched as I scrolled through more photos. There was Aunt Lydia, who claimed she couldn't visit from Cincinnati more than once a year because of her bad hip. There were my cousins Taylor and Amanda, who always said they were too busy to meet up when I suggested it. Even my grandmother, who usually needed help getting up her own front steps, had somehow made it. The cake was elaborate. 3 tiers of white and gold with delicate sugar flowers cascading down one side. "Congratulations, Haley," was piped in elegant script across the middle tier. Congratulations on what I racked my brain but couldn't think of anything recent in Haley's life worth celebrating. No graduation, no engagement, no new job. Just existing, apparently. On my birthday, comments poured in below the photos. So deserved. No one more worthy. About time someone celebrated our girl. Without thinking, I typed, "Nice cake." I didn't expect a response. Not really. But minutes later, my phone pinged with a notification. My mother had replied, "At least someone's worth baking for." The words hit like a physical blow. I sat, frozen pasta, forgotten as tears blurred my vision. 28 years of being the afterthought, the footnote, the O, and Phyllis, too. 28 years of trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Something broke inside me then. Not dramatically, not with sobs or screams, but quietly like ice cracking on a winter pond. A clean, decisive break. I wiped my eyes, took a deep breath, and typed, "Enjoy it, while you can." Then I closed Facebook, put my half-eaten dinner in the sink, and walked to my home office. I wasn't acting out of anger. It felt more like clarity, like finally seeing a path that had been there all along. Opening my laptop, I navigated to my online banking portal. I'd been smart with money my entire adult life, living below my means, investing regularly, building an emergency fund that had grown into something substantial. Without hesitation, I initiated a transfer, moving the majority of my savings to a separate account my family knew nothing about. Then I composed 2 emails. The first went to my boss. "After careful consideration, I've decided to accept the senior position at the Nashville branch. Thank you for understanding my need for a fresh start. I can begin the transition immediately." The second went to a real estate agent whose card I'd kept from when I bought my condo. "I'm interested in listing my property as soon as possible. When might you be available to discuss details?" I sent both emails, shut my laptop, and felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. My worth wasn't determined by my family's validation. It never had been, and it was time I fully embraced that truth. Just as I was about to turn off my phone for the night, it rang. The screen showed my grandmother's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Happy birthday, my Phyllis," said her warm, familiar voice. "I've been thinking about you all day." For the second time that night, tears filled my eyes, but different tears now. "You remembered," I whispered. "I never forget," she said simply. "I tried to call earlier, but your mother said you were working late and would be at the party later. So they had told people I was coming. Just not me. There's something you should know, sweetheart." My grandmother continued, her voice growing serious. "Something about your mother that might help you understand. Not excuse, but understand." As rain tapped gently against my windows, my grandmother shared family secrets I'd never known. How I resembled my mother's first love, a man who had broken her heart so thoroughly she'd spent years in therapy. How seeing my face sometimes triggered painful memories she'd never properly addressed. "It doesn't make it right how she treats you," my grandmother finished. Nothing makes that right. But sometimes people hurt the ones they love because of wounds that never healed. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment thinking about wounds and healing and the decisions we make in response to pain. My path forward was clear, but I no longer felt driven by anger. Instead, I felt something like compassion for my younger self, for my flawed family, and even for the woman I was becoming. The next morning, I woke with purpose. No birthday hangover, no wallowing in self-pity. I had decisions to make and actions to take. Over coffee, I reviewed my finances thoroughly, something I'd done countless times for clients, but rarely with such personal stakes. What I saw confirmed what I already knew. I'd been financially supporting my family far more than anyone realized. 3 years ago, when Dad needed dental surgery and insurance wouldn't cover it, I'd anonymously paid the $5,000 bill. When Mom's car broke down last winter, I arranged for repairs and made it seem like the garage had given her a special discount. And then there was Haley, my beautiful, careless sister who couldn't seem to manage money if her life depended on it. She lived in a luxury apartment downtown, drove a car she couldn't afford, and somehow maintained a wardrobe that belonged on a fashion influencer despite her modest retail salary. What no one knew, not even Haley herself, was that I'd been covering half her rent for the past 2 years. It had started innocently enough. Haley called me in tears one night, saying she was going to be evicted if she couldn't come up with rent money. She begged me not to tell our parents. They'll just lecture me about responsibility, she sobbed. And I can't move back home, Phyllis. I just can't. I could have given her the money directly, but something told me it would become a regular occurrence. Instead, I contacted her property management company, explained I wanted to help my sister anonymously, and arranged to pay 50% of her rent each month. They agreed to tell her they'd found an error in her lease, and reduced her rent accordingly. For 2 years, I'd been quietly keeping my sister in her luxury lifestyle, without anyone knowing. The irony wasn't lost on me, being treated as an afterthought by the very people whose lives I was helping maintain. Now, looking at my financial statements, I made a decision. I wouldn't hurt them. That wasn't who I was. But I would stop enabling patterns that hurt me. My phone pinged with emails responding to my late-night messages. My boss was surprised but supportive of my decision to take the Nashville position. The real estate agent could meet tomorrow to discuss listing my condo. Things were moving quickly, exactly as I needed them to. I spent the day updating my resume, researching neighborhoods in Nashville, and making lists of everything I needed to do before moving. It felt good, productive, like taking control of my narrative for the first time. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone rang again. My grandmother. "I'm checking in," she said when I answered. "How are you today?" "I'm okay," I replied. "Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm making some changes." "What kind of changes?" Her voice held no judgment, only interest. "I'm moving to Nashville, taking a promotion at work." A pause then, that seemed sudden. "Maybe on the surface," I said. "But it's been coming for a long time. Have you told your parents?" "Not yet. I'm still processing everything myself." Another pause. "They were asking about you at the party yesterday, after you commented on Facebook. What did they say I couldn't help asking?" "Your mother said you were probably busy with work. Your father barely looked up from his phone. But Haley." Haley looked uncomfortable, like she knew something wasn't right. This surprised me. Haley rarely showed awareness of others' feelings, especially mine. The party, I asked carefully, what was it for? I couldn't figure it out. My grandmother's sigh traveled through the phone. "That's the thing, Phyllis. There wasn't any specific reason. Haley mentioned feeling down lately, so your mother decided to cheer her up with a surprise gathering. On your birthday." The casual cruelty of it struck me anew. "I said something, you know," my grandmother continued. "Asked why they chose yesterday of all days. Your mother just waved her hand and said you were too busy for family celebrations anyway, and that you probably forgot it was your own birthday." The conversation shifted to Nashville, neighborhoods to consider, places to visit once I moved. My grandmother had lived there briefly in her 20s and had fond memories of the city. "It's a good place for new beginnings," she said before we hung up. But remember, sweetheart, wherever you go, you take yourself with you. Make sure you're moving towards something, not just away. Her words stayed with me as I continued my preparations. Was I running away? No, I decided. For the first time in my life, I was running toward my own worth, my own happiness. That wasn't escape. It was growth. As evening fell, I realized I hadn't heard from anyone else in my family. No belated birthday wishes. No questions about my cryptic Facebook comment. Nothing. It was as if I existed only when physically present, forgotten the moment I was out of sight. Well, they'd notice my absence soon enough. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. Certain threads I'd been quietly maintaining in the background of their lives were about to unravel, starting with Haley's mysteriously reduced rent. That night, I sent one more email to Haley's property management company, politely informing them that I would be terminating my rental contribution arrangement immediately. I explained I was relocating for work and would no longer be able to provide this assistance. Their response was prompt and professional. They understood and would revert to the original lease terms beginning with next month's payment. They would notify my sister of the change tomorrow. I closed my laptop feeling not satisfaction but resolution. The first domino had been tipped. Now I just had to wait for it to fall. 12 days passed, in a whirlwind of activity. I signed paperwork for my Nashville transfer, listed my condo, which had already garnered significant interest, and began systematically sorting through my possessions, deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. No one from my family contacted me, not even to question why I'd missed our monthly Sunday dinner. I hadn't explicitly skipped it. I'd simply not shown up curious if anyone would notice enough to call. No one did. I was boxing books in my living room when urgent knocking startled me. Opening the door revealed Haley mascara streaking down her flushed face, hair disheveled, as if she'd been running her hands through it repeatedly. "What did you do?" she demanded, pushing past me into the apartment. "Hello to you too," I said, closing the door. "What are you talking about?" "My landlord just called," she spat, whirling to face me. "Said my rent is going back to the original amount. That some arrangement has been canceled. My rent is doubling, Phyllis. I can't afford that." I kept my expression neutral. "That sounds stressful." "Stressful? It's catastrophic. I'll be evicted." Her eyes darted around my apartment, finally registering the boxes. "What's happening here? Are you moving?" "I am," I said calmly. "I've accepted a position in Nashville." Haley blinked, momentarily distracted from her own crisis. "Nashville? Since when does Mom know?" "No one knows yet. And you still haven't explained why you think your rent situation has anything to do with me." She ran a hand through her already messy hair. "Because the landlord said the family member who is helping with my payments is moving out of state. You're the only family member I have who's moving. So you put it together," I said, sitting down on my couch. "Yes, Haley. I've been paying half your rent for 2 years. Her mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Then, "But why would you do that? And why would you stop now?" "I did it because you asked for help and I care about you. As for why I'm stopping," I gestured to the boxes. "I'm leaving, starting fresh. This is about the party, isn't it?" Her voice had shifted from angry to wary. "Your comment on Facebook. Enjoy it while you can. This is some kind of revenge." "It's not revenge," I said truthfully. "It's self-preservation, and it's long overdue." Haley collapsed onto a chair opposite me. "I don't understand. For years I've been quietly supporting this family in ways none of you realize. Dad's dental surgery last year, that was me. Mom's car repairs, me. Your rent, also me. All while being treated like an afterthought. The party on my birthday was just the final straw. But that's crazy," Haley stammered. "Why wouldn't you tell us you were helping?" "Would it have made a difference?" I asked. "Would. Knowing I paid Dad's dental bill, have made Mom remember my birthday? Would paying half your rent have stopped you from celebrating on the one day that should have been mine. Haley's face flushed deeper, but with shame now rather than anger. I didn't choose the date, she said weakly. Didn't you? I challenged. Because Grandma told me there wasn't even a specific reason for the party. Just you feeling down and needing cheering up. A long silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant sound of traffic outside my windows. Fine, Haley finally said, her voice small. I did know it was your birthday. I might have suggested that specific day to Mom. Though I'd suspected as much, the confirmation still hurt. Why? Because you have everything. The words burst from her like they'd been held back for years. You're the smart one, the responsible one, the successful one. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow, perfect Phyllis, with her perfect job and perfect condo and perfect life? I stared at her, genuinely stunned. You think you live in my shadow? Are you serious right now? Of course I am. You've always been Mom and Dad's real daughter. I'm just the mistake they had to deal with. The role reversal was so unexpected, I almost laughed. Haley, that is literally the opposite of reality. Mom can barely look at me most days. Dad acknowledges my existence maybe once per conversation. Meanwhile, they throw you surprise parties for being sad. They only do that because they pity me, she shot back. They know I'll never be as successful as you, so they overcompensate by ignoring my birthday, by never coming to any of my achievements, by treating me like I don't matter, by making me feel special when we both know I'm not. Tears were streaming down her face again. You don't need their validation, Phyllis. You never have. You just succeed at everything without trying. Without trying. Now, I did laugh, the sound harsh even to my own ears. I have worked for everything I have, every single thing. Nothing was handed to me while you've had every advantage. I stood, walked to my desk, and returned with a folder. Here, since we're finally being honest with each other. She took it cautiously. What is this? A record of every time I've financially helped our family over the past 5 years. Dates, amounts, purposes. Haley flipped through the pages, her expression shifting from skeptical to shocked. The final page showed a total that made her gasp. This is more than I make in 2 years. I know, but why? Why would you do all this secretly? I sat back down, suddenly tired. Because I thought if I just helped enough, supported enough, achieved enough, eventually I'd earn their love. Your love. I thought if I could just be valuable enough, you'd finally see me. The truth hung in the air between us, raw and undeniable. I had no idea, Haley whispered, still staring at the papers, about any of this. No, you didn't. Because you never asked. None of you did. She looked up, her makeup completely ruined now. I'm not as strong as you, Phyllis. I never have been. I live beyond my means because it makes me feel like I'm worth something. Like I matter. And I live within my means and help everyone else because I've been trying to prove the same thing I said quietly. We're not so different. So what happens now? She asked, gesturing to the boxes. You just leave. Cut us all off. I'm not cutting anyone off. I'm just stepping back, setting boundaries, taking care of myself for once. And my rent? That's not my responsibility, Haley. It never was. I chose to help, and now I'm choosing to stop. She nodded slowly. I guess I deserve that. It's not about deserving. It's about reality. I can't keep enabling patterns that hurt me. Will you tell Mom and Dad about the money, about moving? Eventually. When I'm ready. Haley stood still, clutching the folder. Can I keep this? Show them. I considered it, then nodded. If you want to. It doesn't matter to me anymore. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry. About the party, about everything. I never saw it from your perspective before. That's the problem with our family, I said. No one ever does. After she left, I sat amid my half-packed life wondering if I'd done the right thing. Not about the financial boundaries, those were long overdue, but about the brutal honesty. For the first time in my life, I'd spoken my truth without softening it. without making it palatable for others. It felt both terrifying and exhilarating. My phone buzzed with a text from Haley family, meeting tomorrow night at Mom and Dad's, 7 p.m. Please come. I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to skip it to continue my quiet extraction from their lives. But another part recognized this as the conversation we'd all needed for years. After several minutes, I texted back a single word. Okay. For better or worse, things were about to change. The next evening, I drove to my parents' suburban home with a strange sense of calm. Whatever happened tonight, I knew my worth now in a way I never had before. No one could take that from me again. Their house looked exactly as it always had. Neat lawn, cheerful flowers, my mother tended meticulously warm lights in the windows, suggesting a happy family inside. The facade had worked for so long that sometimes even I believed it. I parked behind Haley's car and took a moment to steady myself before walking to the front door. I didn't bother knocking. I still had a key, though I rarely used it. The sound of raised voices hit me immediately. This can't possibly be right. My father's voice indignant. I'm just telling you what she told me, Haley, defensive. Well, she must have exaggerated. Phyllis would have said something if she'd paid for my dental work. My mother dismissive as always. I stepped into the living room, and 3 heads turned toward me. She didn't exaggerate, I said calmly. I have receipts if you'd like to see them. My father stood from his armchair, face flushed. What's this about you moving to Nashville? Abandoning your family? No, hello, no, how are you? Just accusation. Some things never changed. I've accepted a promotion, I replied, taking a seat on the couch. It's a good opportunity. Without discussing it with us, my mother demanded, perched on the edge of her chair as if ready to flee. Without considering how it affects everyone else, like how you considered me when you threw a party on my birthday. The words slipped out before I could stop them. An awkward silence fell. Haley shifted uncomfortably on the love seat, eyes darting between our parents and me. That's what this is about. My father's voice dripped with dismissal. You're uprooting your entire life over a birthday party. No, I said, maintaining my composure. I'm making a positive career move. The timing just happens to coincide with my realization that this family dynamic isn't healthy for me. Not healthy. My mother's voice rose an octave. We gave you everything. We supported your education, your career choices. Actually, Mom, you didn't. I put myself through college with scholarships and jobs. I bought my own car, my own condo. I've never asked any of you for financial help, not once. Well, over here. I gestured to the folder Haley had placed on the coffee table. I've been quietly keeping this family afloat in ways you never acknowledged. My father snatched up the folder, flipping through it with increasing agitation. This is absurd. The insurance covered my dental surgery. The insurance denied it, I corrected. I paid the bill and had the office tell you it was covered as a courtesy. I have the email exchange with them if you'd like to see that too. His face paled slightly. Why would you do that without telling me? Because every time I've ever needed acknowledgement from this family, I've been disappointed. I stopped expecting it long ago. My mother stood suddenly, moving to the window with her back to us. This is ridiculous. You're trying to make us feel guilty when we've done nothing wrong. I'm not trying to make anyone feel anything I said. I'm simply stating facts. Facts that help explain why I'm choosing to create some distance. By cutting off your sister financially, my father's accusation hung in the air. Haley surprised me by speaking up. Dad, that's not fair. Phyllis had no obligation to help with my rent in the first place. The fact that she did for 2 years was incredibly generous. And the fact that none of you noticed I was doing it speaks volumes, I added. The doorbell rang, startling all of us. My mother wiped her eyes quickly before answering. A moment later, my grandmother walked in her presence, immediately changing the energy in the room. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said, though her tone suggested she knew exactly what she was interrupting. Grandma, I said, rising to hug her. What are you doing here? Haley called me, she replied, patting my cheek before taking the seat beside me. Said there was a family discussion happening that I might want to be part of. My mother's expression tightened. Mother, this isn't really the best time. It seems like Exactly the right time, my grandmother countered. When else are we going to address 28 years of unequal treatment? The bluntness of her statement caused my mother to physically recoil. That's not what's happening here. Isn't it? My grandmother looked around the room. Phyllis is finally standing up for herself, and instead of listening, you're all getting defensive. She's abandoning her sister, my father protested, leaving her unable to pay rent after deliberately misleading her about the cost. The property management company told her the real cost, I clarified. I just arranged to pay half of it without her knowing. There was no deception. Why would you do that? My mother asked, finally turning from the window. Why all the secrecy? Because I knew that if I helped openly, it would become expected rather than appreciated. Because in this family, my contributions are taken for granted. My grandmother nodded slowly. Just like Elizabeth's contributions were taken for granted. The name hung in the air like a ghost. Elizabeth, my mother's older sister who had died before I was born. The aunt I'd been named after with my middle name. That's completely different, my mother snapped, but her voice wavered. Is it? My grandmother's tone was gentle, but firm. You resented how your father idolized Elizabeth, how nothing you did could measure up. And now, you're doing the same thing to Phyllis, just in reverse. My mother sank back into her chair, something like realization dawning on her face. What are you talking about? I asked, looking between them. My grandmother sighed. Your mother was the younger sister who could never measure up, no matter how hard she tried. Your grandfather favored Elizabeth in every way. Her accomplishments, her personality, even her looks. When Elizabeth died, he nearly fell apart. Barely acknowledged your mother's existence for years, so she's punishing me for something Grandpa did 40 years ago. I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. Not consciously, my grandmother said, but patterns repeat when we don't address them. Your mother feared Haley would feel the same inadequacy she felt, so she overcompensated, and in doing so created the very dynamic she feared, just with the roles reversed. That's not true, my mother whispered, but tears were streaming down her face now. Carol, my father said, using my mother's name in a way that suggested this wasn't entirely news to him. We've talked about this in counseling. You've been in counseling, Haley and I asked, simultaneously. My father looked uncomfortable, on and off for years, mostly about parenting issues. And you never addressed this, I gestured between Haley and myself. The obvious favoritism. He had the grace to look ashamed. It was easier not to. When your mother was happy with Haley, everything was peaceful. When she felt guilty about you, she'd get depressed, withdrawn. So you chose the path of least resistance, I said flatly. At my expense. I thought you were strong enough to handle it, he admitted quietly. You've always been so self-sufficient, so capable. I had to be, I replied. I wasn't given any other choice. The room fell silent, as the weight of decades of dysfunction settled around us. No one seemed to know what to say next. Finally, Haley spoke, her voice thick with emotion. I never wanted to be the favorite. Not like this. Not at your expense, Phyllis. I know I said and realized I meant it. You were just accepting what was offered. Anyone would. So what happens now? My father asked, looking older than I'd ever seen him. You just leave. Start a new life without us. I don't know yet, I answered honestly. I know I need space. I know I need to prioritize my own well-being for once. Beyond that, I'm figuring it out as I go. My mother finally looked directly at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. I never meant to hurt you, she said, her voice barely audible. When I look at you, I see so much of myself at your age. All that striving, all that need for validation. I wanted to protect Haley from feeling that way. I never realized I was just transferring it to you instead. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd ever received from her. We've all got work to do, my grandmother said, standing slowly. Healing doesn't happen in one conversation, but it has to start somewhere. As if on cue, we all began to rise, the meeting clearly over, though nothing was really resolved. My father looked shell-shocked, my mother drained, Haley contemplative. Only my grandmother seemed somehow lighter, as if she'd been waiting years to witness this conversation. As I walked toward the door, my father suddenly stepped forward. "Phyllis, wait." He reached for my arm, but stopped short of actually touching me. "The promotion in Nashville. Is it really a good opportunity?" The question surprised me. Not its content, but the fact that he seemed genuinely interested. "Yes," I said. "Better salary, more responsibility, chance to build my own team." He nodded slowly. "Then, congratulations are in order, I suppose." It wasn't much, but it was something. A small acknowledgement that had been 28 years in the coming. "Thank you," I replied, and stepped out into the night, leaving behind a family in turmoil, but perhaps finally on the path to honesty. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of boxes, paperwork, and goodbyes. My condo sold quickly above asking price in the hot real estate market. My transfer to Nashville was approved with a start date 6 weeks out, giving me time to relocate and settle in. I found a short-term rental in Nashville to use while I house hunted properly. After the family meeting, a strange quiet had fallen between us all. Not silence, we still communicated, but a tentative, careful interaction, as if we were all newly aware of the fragility of our relationships. Haley had taken initiative in finding a roommate to help with her rent and had started financial counseling. My parents had sent a brief but sincere email apologizing for missing my birthday and congratulating me on the promotion. Small steps, not healing, not yet, but movement in that direction. I was in the middle of coordinating with movers when my phone rang with a Nashville area code. My new boss, probably with details about the transition. "Phyllis Winters," I answered professionally. "Miss Winters, this is Evelyn Jackson, VP of Client Services at Monroe Financial." I frowned, not recognizing the name or company. "Yes, I apologize for calling out of the blue, but your name was brought to my attention by several industry colleagues. We're establishing a new branch in your current city and looking for someone to head our analyst team. Your reputation precedes you." My heart beat faster. Monroe Financial was one of the top firms in the country, several steps up from Brighton. "That's flattering," I said carefully, "but I've actually accepted a position with Brighton's Nashville office." "I'm aware," she replied. "I'm prepared to offer you significantly better terms to stay. Remote work options, higher salary, and the chance to build your department from the ground up. I appreciate the offer, but my decision to relocate isn't purely professional." "Personal space can be valuable," she said, surprising me with her perception. "But so can professional growth on your own terms. Just think about it. We can discuss details when you're ready." She ended the call, after giving me her direct number, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. The universe seemed determined to complicate my clean break. I was still considering the unexpected offer when another call came through. Haley. "Phyllis," her voice was tight with panic. "It's Mom. She collapsed at work. Dad's with her at Memorial Hospital." "What happened?" I asked, already grabbing my keys. "They don't know yet. She was complaining of dizziness, then just went down. Dad says she's conscious, but disoriented. I'm on my way." I arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later, finding Haley pacing the emergency room waiting area. "Any updates?" I asked. She shook her head. "Dad's back there with her. They're running tests." We sat side by side in uncomfortable plastic chairs, an unspoken truce between us. After about 40 minutes, our father emerged, looking exhausted. "Transient ischemic attack," he said without preamble. "Like a mini-stroke. They're admitting her for observation and more tests." "Is she okay?" Haley asked, voice small. "For now, yes. But the doctor said it could be a warning sign of something more serious. Stress-related, possibly." His eyes found mine, and I saw the unspoken accusation there. "Your decision to leave contributed to her stress." But then he seemed to catch himself, his expression softening. "She's asking for both of you," he said instead. My mother looked small and vulnerable in the hospital bed, her usual perfect composure absent. When she saw us, she tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My girls," she said, reaching out her hands. "No need to fuss. I'm fine." Haley immediately took one hand. I hesitated, then took the other. The doctor says you need to rest, my father said, and reduce stress. My mother waved this away with the hand I'd been holding. Everyone has stress. It's part of life. Mom, I said gently, maybe it's time to address some of the sources of that stress. She looked at me sharply. Then something in her expression crumbled. Maybe it is. The next few days created a strange holding pattern in my carefully laid plans. My mother was released from the hospital with medication and strict instructions to follow up with specialists. My Nashville start date loomed, and the unexpected offer from Monroe Financial sat in the back of my mind, offering an alternative I hadn't considered. On the third evening after my mother's health scare, I met with my boss at Brighton to discuss my transition. As we wrapped up, he leaned back in his chair with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I'm going to go out on a limb here, Phyllis," he said. "We value you tremendously. If there's anything that would convince you to stay, different role, more flexibility, adjusted compensation, I'd like to know what it is." I blinked, surprised by the second unexpected offer in a week. "I appreciate that, but my reasons for leaving aren't entirely professional. Personal space doesn't always require geographic distance," he said, eerily echoing Evelyn Jackson's words. "We could arrange partial remote work, 3 days in office, 2 from wherever you choose. Even Nashville, if you still want a foothold there." The idea hit me with unexpected force. Was it possible to create the distance I needed without completely uprooting my life? "I need to think about it," I said honestly. That night I sat in my half-packed apartment weighing options I hadn't considered before. The clean break of Nashville still appealed to me. New city, new start, physical distance from painful dynamics. But my mother's health scare had complicated things, and the professional opportunities being offered to stay were undeniably attractive. My phone buzzed with a text from Haley. "Can we talk in person?" We met at a quiet coffee shop halfway between our apartments. Haley looked different somehow, less polished, more authentic with minimal makeup and casual clothes. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as we settled with our drinks. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about everything. My spending habits, our family dynamics, how I've been living my life." She twisted her cup nervously. "I've started therapy, real therapy, not just financial counseling." "That's great," I said, genuinely impressed. "How is it?" "Hard. Really hard. But necessary." She looked up at me. "I found a second job too, weekends at a catering company. Between that and my new roommate, I should be able to manage my rent." "I'm proud of you," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "I don't deserve your pride," she said bluntly. "Not after how I've treated you. But I'm working on being someone who might deserve it someday." I didn't know how to respond to that level of honesty, so I just nodded. "Mom and Dad are trying too," she continued. "They've gone back to their counselor. Dad actually talked to me about some of the enabling patterns he's recognized in himself." "That's unexpected," I admitted. "It's like your decision to leave shook everyone awake." Haley leaned forward. "Which brings me to why I wanted to meet. Are you still set on Nashville?" I hesitated, then told her about the 2 job offers I'd received to stay. "That's amazing," she said when I finished. "Are you considering them?" "I don't know. The whole point was to create distance, to break unhealthy patterns. What if those patterns are already breaking? What if you could have the professional opportunities and still maintain some boundaries with family?" It was the question I'd been asking myself all day. "I'm not trying to convince you to stay for my sake, or even for Mom and Dad's," Haley clarified. I'd hate to see you give up amazing career opportunities if the family situation might be improving anyway." For the first time in our adult lives, I felt like my sister was seeing me clearly, not as competition, not as an obstacle, but as a person with my own needs and ambitions. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "There's a lot to consider." As I drove home, I realized I was at a genuine crossroads. The path I'd chosen after my birthday, complete separation, had felt right at the time. But now other paths were opening up, ones that might allow for healing without sacrificing my hard-won boundaries. That night I made a pros and cons list. For each option, something I'd done for clients countless times, but rarely for myself. By morning, I had clarity. I called my boss first, then Evelyn Jackson at Monroe Financial. After 2 long conversations, I had a new plan, one that surprised even me with how right it felt. I would accept the position at Monroe Financial with a hybrid arrangement that allowed me to work remotely 2 days a week. I would keep my condo, which thankfully hadn't closed yet, and I would set clear, firm boundaries with my family while still remaining geographically close enough to navigate our evolving relationship. It wasn't the clean break I'd initially envisioned. It was messier, more complicated, but it also felt more authentic to who I was and what I actually wanted. Not just escape from pain, but growth towards something better. When I called my family to share my decision, the response was cautiously positive. No one pushed for more closeness than I was offering. No one questioned my choice. Instead, there was something new in their tone. Respect, perhaps. Or at least the beginning of it. "I think that's very wise," my grandmother said when I called her last. "Creating space without burning bridges." "I'm still going to enforce boundaries," I assured her. "This isn't me falling back into old patterns." "I know, dear one. I've seen the change in you. And remarkably, I'm starting to see changes in them, too." As I hung up, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time when it came to my family. Hope. Not the desperate hope of a child seeking approval, but the measured hope of an adult who understands that people can change slowly, imperfectly, if given the chance. My birthday had been a breaking point, the moment when years of accumulated pain finally demanded acknowledgement. But what had started as a desperate escape was evolving into something more nuanced. A renegotiation of relationships on new, healthier terms. I looked around my half-packed apartment and smiled. Time to unpack some boxes. I wasn't leaving after all, but I wasn't going back to the way things had been either. I was moving forward on my own terms at last. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my renovated condo, arranging fresh flowers in a vase. The space looked different now. I'd repainted, replaced some furniture, transformed it from a place I'd merely existed to a home that reflected who I truly was, much like I'd done with my life. My phone buzzed with a text from Haley running, about 10 minutes late, bringing the dessert as promised. Today was significant, my 29th birthday. But unlike last year, this one was being acknowledged. In fact, I was hosting a small dinner party. Haley, my parents, my grandmother, and a few close friends from work. An intimate celebration that felt right for this new chapter of my life. The past 6 months had brought changes I couldn't have imagined on that painful 28th birthday. My new position at Monroe Financial had exceeded expectations. I'd built a team that was already earning recognition within the company. The hybrid work arrangement gave me the independence I needed while allowing me to establish stronger professional roots in the city. But the most profound changes had been within my family. True to her word, Haley had maintained her second job and continued therapy. She'd moved to a more affordable apartment, started building savings for the first time in her life, and even enrolled in night classes to finish her business degree. Our relationship had evolved from competitive distance to cautious friendship. We met for coffee every other week, a simple ritual that would have been unimaginable a year ago. My parents had taken longer to adjust. Old patterns don't disappear overnight, but they were trying in their imperfect way. My father had started checking in regularly, asking thoughtful questions about my work. My mother had begun sending small care packages. Nothing extravagant, just little remembrances to show she was thinking of me. After her health scare, she'd finally started addressing her own emotional wounds, attending therapy consistently. During one particularly difficult session, she'd invited me to join her, and we'd had the most honest conversation of our lives. She'd acknowledged through tears how she'd projected her own pain onto me for years. "You reminded me so much of myself," she'd admitted. "Always striving, always achieving. I was terrified you'd experience the same disappointments I did. So I tried to prepare you for a harsh world by being harsh myself." It makes no sense, but it felt like protection. It wasn't a perfect explanation, and it didn't erase years of hurt, but it was a beginning. a crack in the wall between us that might someday allow for real connection. The doorbell rang, pulling me from my thoughts. My grandmother stood outside, elegant, as always, in a blue dress that matched her eyes. "Happy birthday, my dear," she said, embracing me warmly. 29 looks good on you." "It feels good," I admitted, taking the gift bag she offered. "Different than 28, that's for sure." "Growth often comes from our most painful moments," she said, following me to the kitchen. "Though I wish it hadn't taken such hurt to bring about these changes." "I've made peace with it," I said, and realized I mostly had. Everything that happened led me here. Others arrived gradually. My colleagues Jordan and Melissa, my friend Taylor from college, then Haley, with an elaborately decorated cheesecake. "Made it myself," she said proudly. 3 attempts, but this one actually worked. The old Haley would never have admitted to failed attempts at anything. The new one seemed to understand that vulnerability wasn't weakness. My parents arrived last, my father carrying a wrapped gift, my mother bringing a bouquet of lilies. My favorite, though I couldn't remember ever telling her that. "The place looks wonderful," my mother said, glancing around. "You've really made it your own." It was a simple observation, but it felt significant. She was seeing my space, my choices, seeing me. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. We ate, drank, shared stories. My colleagues entertained everyone with tales from our office. My college friend reminisced about our freshman year disasters. Even my parents contributed, my father telling a self-deprecating story about his first job interview that had everyone laughing. After dessert, my grandmother tapped her glass gently. "I'd like to make a toast," she said, rising. "To Phyllis, who showed all of us what courage really looks like. Who taught us that true strength isn't just enduring, but knowing when to stand up for yourself." "To Phyllis," everyone echoed, raising their glasses. Later, as the evening wound down, Haley helped me clean up while the others chatted in the living room. So she said quietly, rinsing a plate, "Different from last year, huh?" "Completely," I agreed. "I want you to know something." She continued, her focus seemingly on the dish in her hands. "That day, when I found out you'd been helping with my rent, it changed everything for me. Not just financially, but how I saw myself, how I saw you, how I saw our whole family." She looked up, eyes serious. "Thank you for having the courage to stop enabling me. I needed that wake-up call more than I could have known." The simple honesty of her words touched me deeply. "I'm proud of you, Haley, for all the changes you've made." "I'm still figuring it out," she admitted. "But for the first time, I feel like I'm building something real, not just an appearance of success." After everyone had left, I sat alone in my quiet apartment reflecting on the evening. It hadn't been perfect. There were still awkward moments, still echoes of old wounds, but it had been authentic in a way family gatherings had never been before. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Thank you for including us tonight. I know we still have work to do, but I hope you know how much I love you. 6 months ago, such a message would have seemed impossible. Now it felt like one step on a longer journey." The truth was, healing wasn't linear. There were still difficult days, still times when old hurts resurfaced. My parents sometimes slipped into familiar patterns. Haley occasionally fell back on competitive comparisons. I still struggled with setting boundaries without building walls. But we were all trying, imperfectly, honestly trying. And that made all the difference. My 28th birthday had been a breaking point, the moment when years of accumulated pain finally demanded acknowledgement. But what had started as a desperate escape had evolved into something more nuanced. Not just the absence of hurt, but the presence of something healthier, more authentic. I'd learned that sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to discover what you truly need. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to stop accepting treatment that diminishes you. That your worth isn't determined by others' validation, but by your own recognition of it. These weren't easy lessons. They'd come at a cost through pain and confrontation and difficult truths. But standing here now on the other side of that journey, I wouldn't change any of it. Because this birthday, this 29th year of life, I wasn't hoping for acknowledgement or seeking approval. I was celebrating my own worth, my own strength, my own ability to craft a life that honored who I truly was. And that was the greatest gift I could have given myself. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family, even when it was painful? How did you find the courage to set boundaries while still leaving room for healing? Please share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the courage to honor your own worth always.